turn the dial, turn it loud. Miami's pride, make us proud. CanesWear crew, you hear the crowd. Hurricanes ain't backing down. Every play, every score, raising bets and raising roar. Rocking orange, green galore. All for one and one for four. We got FTSN, taking names, win it again. Podcast fam, till the end. Tune in, now let's begin.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, Cane fans that are tuned in? I am your host, Brad Tejeda. This is the CanesWear Daily Podcast Show, only on FTSN. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And I got a very special guest with us today. Unless you're a Hurricane fan that doesn't have internet or doesn't listen to podcasts or just isn't a real Hurricane fan, doesn't know who this guy is to the right of me, this is my brother, none other than John Michaels. He is the host of State of Miami Pod. He is one of four of the Cane Gang radio show, along with me, Co, and Dirty Bird. And, of course, he is one of the hosts on 680 The Fan in Atlanta, 6 to 10 in the morning. My God, John always brings it, and he is nothing but positivity and great vibes anytime we get together. John, what's up, brother?
Hey, positivity when we're 8. Actually, when we're together, it doesn't matter. It's always great vibes. We sat through 45-3. We've been in places where it's like, man, is this thing ever going to come back? And now all of a sudden we're 8-0. I'm as happy as I've been in about 10 years, so life feels good. How you doing, Brad?
You already know, brother, man. It's going great. You know, obviously this past weekend we had a great time tailgating. Me, you, Carnell, Armando, Cliff. Got to see our boy Zach Krantz and plenty of other Miami Hurricane fans and former players we got to chop it up with as well. And like you said, right, you know, we were in this scenario, me and you in particular, this time 2 years ago in Hard Rock Stadium. We sat not through the whole game of that blowout of 45-3. We hit the early exit button quick, the ejectocito gif. You know, you see it Fast and Furious. We did hit that button very quickly 2 seasons ago. But now fast forward into now, right? This was the second time we got to hang out this football season. We try to at least get to 2 or 3 games together every year. And coincidentally, it was our 2 in-state big-time rivals in Florida. First game of the year up in Gainesville, and then obviously Florida State in the Hard Rock Stadium. Before we talk about the great tailgating, the great game we saw against Florida State, I kind of want to hit the reverse button a little bit, John. And me and you and others like Co and Dirty Bird, we talk on a weekly basis about the expectations of this football team and kind of what we've been seeing week in and week out, nitpicking little things that we can improve and get better on. But I think we can all agree, us as diehard Miami Hurricane fans, I don't think many of us really saw what we're seeing coming before the season started. A guy like Cam Ward, a guy like Shannon Dawson, it just seems like they're a perfect match right now. Peanut butter and jelly, spaghetti and meatballs, whatever you want to call it. These two are rocking on all cylinders, whether it's passing or running the ball. You know, going into that first game against Florida, what was your expectations for that game? And then just seeing the overall development of this football team.
You know, going back to Florida, I always go into seasons a lot of time with probably higher expectations than I should because, you know, being a 40-plus year Miami fan, I got to see a lot of the good times. Unfortunately, for the last 20 years, well chronicled, more bad times than good times. This year, though, you know, I kind of had seen the build that Mario had. Offensive line, set. Defensive line, bringing in studs or bringing in transfers or guys that were already there, set. Receivers outside, set. Offensive, running back, set. The only question really from last year to this year was, could the quarterback be improved? Tyler Van Dyke leaves. I think we were all okay with that. Jakari Brown decides to transfer. That was one that hurt a little bit because you saw potential. Emory, we knew wasn't going to play because of the arm issue against Florida State a year ago. And when you brought in Reese, you know, I think we all go, all right, it's going to be Emory and Reese fighting for a job. This might be a 7 or 8 win team. Everything else is there, but I don't think quarterback is special. Then all of a sudden, Cam Ward decides to transfer in. Now, I'm a guy that plays college fantasy football, and I've done it now for 7 or 8 years. So, you know, college fantasy, different than the NFL, your games are all done on Saturday night. So you know Saturday night what your score is going to be. And I play in a really competitive, fun league. And for the last couple of years, I've had to stay up watching Pac-12 After Dark. So I got to see more Cam Ward than I probably wanted to at Washington State, never knowing that he was going to be the guy to be Miami's quarterback. And I remember having the conversation on our show in Atlanta, and I kept telling people, I said, I think Miami's got a chance to be really special, but it depends on Cam Ward. I saw what he could do at Washington State. I saw all the numbers at Incarnate Word, but it's different playing at Washington State than it is playing against Florida in the Swamp on August the 31st. It's different, playing at Miami in marquee matchups, although this season we haven't had a ton of marquee matchups. Different playing there with the expectations to win a national championship than it is at Wazoo. So when I walked into Florida, when I saw you at the pizza spot right there, when you had your event at 5 o'clock on that Friday night, I was excited. I knew we were better than Florida. I thought we would win, but I was still nervous. And I remember picking 27-20. I told everybody, I said, this game's going to be a hell of a lot closer than we thought it would. Only you said 41-17 on the nail. You nailed it directly on the head and had real confidence. So to say that the expectations literally week one exceeded expectations, I never thought I'd see an offense click the way that it has. And obviously where we're at right now, it feels fantastic.
I mean, you brought up Cam Ward and some of these transfers. I think, again, to your point, leading up to that first game of the season, I think a lot of Miami Hurricane fans, we were hyped for the game. We were ready, and we were definitely motivated that we thought we were going to get the W. But it was like we just really needed to see it with our own eyes, right? Everything that you talked about, what you saw with Cam Ward at Washington State, and even before that, Incarnate Ward. The great thing about Cam Ward at Miami is everything that we're talking about before he was at Miami, it's translating exactly to what it is at Miami. The only thing that's changing is the color of the uniform, the helmet, and the players around him. Who Cam Ward is on and off the field, how he prepares, and just his game in general. Nothing has changed, right? And sometimes when you have a guy like Cam Ward who really bet on himself to come back another year and go to that next jump of level in conference play as far as the college football standard, going from FCS to FBS, right? One of the biggest challenges in a guy like that, especially at the quarterback position, is he going to be out of character? Is he going to do too much? Is he going to change things that in reality really helped him to get where he was? And I think that's one of the greatest things about Cam Ward is this is a young man that has never changed. And he just continues to play well in the spotlight. And whenever there's a challenge in front of him, not only does he accept the challenge, but he exceeds it. And we're starting to see every single week that defenses, you want to prepare for the run, we got the pass. You want to prepare for the pass like Florida State did this past weekend, well, we still got the run, right? And I think one of the things that we're going to start to see and what we're seeing with our own two eyes, not only with us, but our rivals, with this new day and age of the transfer portal, it is very key that if you are not a top 5 team in the nation year in and year out, you have to make sure you not only recruit the right guys and develop the right guys, but these guys that you're bringing in the transfer portal, your hit and miss ratio needs to be over 50 to 60%. Because like we saw last year with us, most of our transfer portal guys didn't work out. But on the flip side, a team like Florida State really benefited from that last year. Fast forward to now this year, almost every guy from the transfer portal that we've gotten this year has been huge impact guys. And you're seeing with a team like Florida State, they don't know how to recruit. They don't know how to develop. And, of course, their transfer portal guys for this season aren't panning well at all. I want to ask you this question. It's pretty easy to pinpoint maybe 1 or 2 guys from the transfer portal that have been huge impacts for this team so far, whether it's Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, or even a guy like Nish Powell or Simeon Barrow, right? But give me 1 or 2 underrated transfer portal guys that you feel like Miami fans aren't really talking about it, or someone that you just feel like has been like a huge improvement for this team.
It's number 1 for me is Zach Carpenter. We had Matt Lee a year ago, and I think a lot of people said, man, Matt Lee was a godsend, because we had some years at center that it was more miss than hit, guys that you tried to keep around for a long time, and they just never really took that next step. And then Matt Lee comes in, and you see what it's like to have just a dog playing in the middle. Well, he was a 1-year dude, and he's off to the NFL, and now you look and you go, all right, we're bringing in a kid from Indiana. Don't know a ton about him. He looks like he's tough. You watch a little bit of tape on him. But when you don't hear about an offensive lineman at all, that's when you know they're doing a great job. We haven't had any bad snaps, and I knock on wood when I say that. We really haven't had any issues where interior defensive linemen are blowing up the middle of the field on Cam Ward, and that's a testament to both the guards as well. But I think Zach Carpenter, you think about it, you got a new battery. It's Zach Carpenter and Cam Ward. You'd think there would be mistakes, missed line calls, wrong slides, bad snaps, a guy going the wrong way. You haven't seen any of that. So I think somebody like that, maybe the most underrated of the transfer portal guys. And I think Sam Brown's another one. I know Sam had his moments with some drops. It looked like early in the year he was fighting the football, but about the time he caught that the honey hole route, as we like to call it, against cover two against South Florida, and he goes 75 yards for a touchdown that ends up blowing that game wide open. I think Sam Brown's been an absolute stud. He helped us hugely against Louisville. 3 giant catches, breaking tackles, had the long touchdown reception as well. And then against Florida State, I'm not sure which corner he had on absolute ice skates early in the game on the first touchdown drive. But Sam's a kid that's got elite speed. He makes you, makes you realize that you can't just guard X or can't guard Jacoby or Isaiah Horton. But I think those are 2 guys that nobody talks about a ton, that have really done unbelievable jobs for Miami in the portal.
Before we go over this past weekend's game against Florida State and the great tailgating and festivities we had during that weekend, going back a couple games before that, I know you and me both, especially in a group chat, there were a few weeks, that we were really battling adversity. And there were some times where it's like, oh my goodness, here we are. We're back being the same Miami again. We thought this would be different. And something's going to happen. Well, we didn't know that the something was going to happen was going to be Cam Ward and the offense putting the JanSport on their back. And then luckily our defense buckling down in third and fourth quarters and late drives and really just putting it all together. But what I want to ask you is going through all these games now, we're 8-0. We just covered the spread against our rival in Florida State. And even though they were as bad as they were, you still got to go up to a game against your rival and still play some football. So kudos to us for covering that spread when we get to that. But what has been the most surprising thing to you when you've been seeing this team battle adversity? Because, let's not forget, we were in this predicament, back in 2017 where we were undefeated and we were getting wins under our belt and we were top 5 in the nation, number 2 at that, and, getting that playoff picture. What feels different about this year besides the obvious of Cam Ward to you, John, than what we saw from 2017 and kind of how all this is unfolding?
I think, Brad, one of the biggest things is the ability to score at any time. Like that 2017 team, we've all gotten to know Malik Rozier over the years. And, Mark Richt, I think, did a really good job putting, he made chicken salad out of chicken bleep a lot of times early on in his tenure, because I don't know that was the most talented team, especially when they started getting injured. And there were times offensively, it felt like they were stuck in mud. You'd look up and you're going, why are we in like would they beat North Carolina that year, 24-21 or 21-17? And that was a dreadful, like 2-9, horrible North Carolina team. But it was kind of boom or bust in 2017. You'd either have those games where everything was clicking, Notre Dame, Virginia, the offense played really well, or you'd be stuck in the fourth quarter hoping that Malik came up with a great play. It feels like this year, Louisville, Cal, I know you played poorly for a while against Cal, or even Virginia Tech, the 3 closest games. I always kept saying, if we can get a stop, we're going to win these games. And, Cam had a couple of bad interceptions against Virginia Tech. Yet you never had fear that if we got the ball back that they were going to get a stop. Against Cal, it was explosive plays. It was Cam for one time. I thought that day he played outside of his character, trying to make too many big plays. And when we finally settled in the third and fourth quarter and realized, okay, these 10-yard routes have been wide open all game, he started hitting them. Louisville never in the game had a chance to get a stop against us. Louisville could have had 12, 14, 18 guys on the field. We were going to score whenever we want. So I think the biggest takeaway for me, what's different is every time we need a score, I really feel confident we're going to go get a score. Like, I know there's a lot of people that talked about Florida State. Oh, they shut you down. We scored on 7 of 8 drives. They stopped us one time. And I saw a stat that blew me away this week. Miami's had 97 possessions on offense. They've had 3 3-and-outs. 2 of them were against Florida. Yeah. So since that game, they've had exactly 1 3 and out. So even when they don't score, they're putting your defense in position where you've got to make a play to try to stop us. And I think a lot of times that we've been stopped, it's been self-inflicted wounds, a bad penalty here, maybe a drop ball here. Florida State did get a couple of sacks, but this offense is so unstoppable. This is where, and I've got people in Atlanta, you guys have no chance against Clemson. Georgia will dog walk you. Texas will blow you out. I go, what college football have you guys been watching this year? Because I watch, and I like Georgia. Don't get me wrong. I think they're really good. But I watched them beat Kentucky by 1, and I watched them give up 31 points to Mississippi State. I watched Texas struggle at Vanderbilt. I watched Clemson get dog walked by Georgia. Point being is everybody, even Oregon, who's undefeated and ranked #1, had to hit a walk-off field goal against Boise State, and they only beat Idaho by 10. You got an offense like this, like Miami does, every single game you have a puncher's chance to beat anybody. Now, the defense needs to be better, but I think this offense will keep us in any game, and that includes all the way in late January here in Atlanta, and I got to get a damn field pass. I don't know how, but I got to be on that field somehow.
Oh, I'm sure you're going to find a way. And you made some great points, right? I mean, as much as we talk about the offense, our defense definitely has been slacking. But at the end of the day, I think when you hear these players, in press conferences, whether it's after games or after practices, they see the same thing that us fans see. And it's that we have not been hitting on all cylinders, not once this whole season yet. And the fact that we're still continuously to win, still, outdoing the spreads when needed at times, right? These are things that you're not seeing in this day and age of college football right now. To your point, every team in college right now is beatable. Look at the #1 ranked team in the previous, 4 or 5 weeks. Someone gets upset in that top 3 to top 5 almost every week, not usually in just college football, but this year in particular. And there's also not that team out there that is more dominant than everyone else or has that defense where it's just when you go up against this defense, you're not getting more than 10 points. The Texas, the Georgias, the Alabamas of the world, Michigans, everyone is beatable on any given day. And the fact that Miami continues to win just like any other college, it seems like they're getting knocks. But I think we all know the reason why. Because of that, because we are the U, and people are going to hate us because we are just the U, man. I mean, that's just no way about it. But I want to ask you this. Our defense, right, like we just brought up, we could talk a little bit about this Florida State game before we get into the big Manny versus Mario and Duke matchup this weekend. But when we go to this Florida State game, they had a game plan going into this game, right? They knew and they understood the capability of what Cam Ward brings to the table. And they also understood that they were playing in the Hard Rock Stadium. It was going to get packed. This is a rival. And they just didn't have the bells and whistles to compete like they usually do against this team. Right. But what they knew what they were going to do was they were going to use their best players on defense to their advantage, which is their pass rush and their pass secondary. And they made sure that Cam Ward and this offense wasn't going to get beat deep. So they played 2 high safety, contained everything, and they had no problem giving you the 5 to 7 yard dunks. And what you brought up earlier, we saw in more closer games and bigger time matchups, the Virginia Techs, the Cows, there were opportunities where we didn't necessarily need that big play. We needed the check down. We needed Cam Ward to tuck it and run and just make the smart plays. And at times he got out of character. At times he kind of outdid things, and it really put us behind the 8 ball. Well, with this Florida State game, what you saw was this team, whether it was Shannon Dawson, Cam Ward, or the running game, we took whatever Florida State's defense gave us. And what they did was they said, hey, you're not going to pass deep, but we'll allow you to run. And guess what? We had one of our most successful running games of the season. Damian Martinez had 15 carries, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns, most rushing yards by a Miami running back this season. And then, of course, you had Mark Fletcher with 15 carries, 70-plus yards, and a touchdown. Of course, remembering his father as well, who passed this past weekend. So shout out to the Fletcher family. But what has been your take just as far as the Florida State game going into our offense, just being able to establish a run to where now it really does seem like we can really be a somewhat of a balanced offense. Maybe we can't put it all together in one game like we did against Florida at the beginning of the season coming up to this point. But we have shown that if you are a defense and you're going to go into a football game with one game plan, you're going to have 2 game plans because you're not going to be able to stop both the run and the pass against Miami.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. As you get deeper into the season, you play better teams. You cannot be one-dimensional. Like Georgia took away Texas. They took away everything Texas wanted to do in the first half in that game out in Austin. And Texas only got in the game because of a fluky pass interference, throw the bottle on the field type stuff. And I thought early in the year, Miami was a little pass heavy, which I didn't mind because when I play college football, I'm going to sit back there and sling it 50 times a game myself. And when you have Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo and Arroyo and Lofton and all these different guys, you want to throw it. But eventually you got to be able to run it. And I thought it really started against Louisville. We ran for over 200 yards against Louisville, even though we threw the ball all over the yard and put up 52 points. It makes it where it's now pick your poison. And you're right with everything you said about FSU. They've got good corners. They've got solid defensive backs, but they also were going to come up, take you off your route, and have guys over the top where you couldn't hit the long explosives. And they did a good job, maybe more so than anybody else, at getting after the passer. But you know what? Miami played smart. Fine, you want to play deep? We're just going to keep hammering you with body shots. And eventually that wears on you. And I think Mario knew, and I think Shannon Dawson and everybody knew, Florida State wasn't going to score 20 points. So if we got to 20, the game was going to be over. And Bird was sitting right next to him. And he'll tell you, I was kind of pissed off at the end of the first half that we decided to kick a field goal. And I was a little more mad when we decided to go up 16-7, or what was it? It was 20-7 and then 23-7. I kept going, dude, it's 4th and 1. Go for it. We ran the ball like crazy. But Bird was right. He said, let's just put points on the board. They're never going to catch up. And eventually they were going to break. And they broke in the fourth quarter. Damian had some big runs. We had the FU touchdown running the Miami special with Arroyo throwing the touchdown to Cam, which I loved. And Florida State realized, again, this game was never going to be in doubt. Defensively, I thought we played well. They had a fluke quarterback sneak. Let's call it what it is, fluke. I think Lance Guidry said this week, the play wasn't even supposed to be snapped, and the center snapped it on accident. So if you watch Kromenhoek, he almost fumbles the ball. Then we've got him tackled. Then their lineman snatches Kromenhoek and kind of throws him forward, and he gets that play. And then their other touchdown is with 10 seconds left. I think there was only about 200 people left in the stands. I was still one of them. You were looking for a car, but that's a whole different story for a different day. But that was it. That's all they had at that point. So I thought all in all, it was a really good game. I thought all in all, Miami did exactly what they were supposed to do. You treated little trash brother like the little trash brother that they are. They weren't even close. They could have played 90 quarters and they weren't going to score 36 points against us. So Miami played the perfect game. They did it. Well, I don't want to say the perfect game. They had the perfect game plan for what Florida State put against them. We had a great time on Saturday afternoon and evening. And my only thing that bothers me, the tailgate was better than the game itself, because the game, quite frankly, in the second half got boring because Florida State was so garbage. They had no chance of doing anything.
And yeah, tailgating. I mean, anytime we get together, tailgating in the day and the night's always good times. But the tailgate was on a whole nother level. Canes Cartel was in the building, man. Just the environment. Anytime you go to a Miami tailgate, it is like no other. I mean, we had former greats like Clinton Portis and Edrin James hanging out, for a few minutes as well. Got to hang out with Kappa Kane and X from Canesville and all the great Cane fans. So yeah, awesome time, awesome, great game with Florida State. And to your point, we followed a game plan, and it was a vanilla game plan, and we did just that. We hit the cruise control button, and it was a sayonara, easy W for Miami. And we look forward to this Duke game now. Going into this Duke game this weekend, obviously the main header is Manny first, Mario, right? But anyone that knows Mario, especially if you hear him in pressers, he doesn't really care about that Manny talk, right? This is another opponent, another week to go 1-0, like this team has been preparing for each and every week. But there is a few things that I think Duke is going to take from the game plan of what Florida State did this past weekend. And it's because they were the first team that really had a game plan going against Miami that actually held Cam Ward to not being what Cam Ward is used to seeing week in and week out. And they were saying, hey, run the ball, and we did just that. And I think the issue that Duke will have if they try to replicate that same game plan is they do have a really good pass defense. And to back that up, I believe opponents only have 167 or 68 passing yards a game against Duke. So they are a really good passing defense, and they do create a lot of turnovers. They're top 3 in the nation in pretty much every turnover category on defense, and they're also number 2 in the nation in tackles for a loss. just goes to show you, you guys remember Manny Diaz when he was the head coach in the DC at Miami. When all things are humming on the defense, those type of stats should be at the top because that is just how Manny Diaz and this defense operates. But we also know one thing about Manny Diaz's defense. They cannot stop the run. So very similar to Florida State going into this game. If you're Duke and you're going to try to replicate a game plan of Florida State with guys in the secondary who, in my opinion, don't have the athleticism or talent that Florida State has, and on top of that, your rushing defense is even worse than Florida State. I believe Duke's the second worst rushing team in the conference this year. This is going to be a very key game where I think there's going to be a lot of blitzes coming from all angles, as we know with Manny Diaz. But I think this will be another opportunity for our rushing game to be the strong suit. But I will like to see Cam Ward and this offense at least get a couple touchdowns in the air. What's your thoughts on the offensive game plan going in this game and some things that you're looking for on our defensive side of the ball going in this game? Because I don't know about you, but some of these mobile quarterbacks we've been going against, whether it was Byron Brown for South Florida or Kyron Jones for Virginia Tech, and then even the non-athletic guys like Mendoza from Cal and what we saw with Luke at Florida State, these guys, if they want to run, they have the capability of running, and that's been one of our issues with guys like Kiko and other guys getting lost in space. And I know this quarterback in Malik Murphy at Duke, he's not scaring me passing the ball, but them as a whole running could be a problem. What's your thoughts?
So let's start with the offensive side of the ball. We know what Manny Diaz wants to do. He's going to blitz, and then when he's in trouble, he's going to blitz more, and he's going to try to cause havoc with all kinds of angles and guys coming from different directions. When it was in its infancy at Miami, it was really good. 16-17, our defense was explosive. The turnover chain was gigantic. Well, guess what? Teams started to figure it out. And I know Blake Baker became the defensive coordinator, but guess what? It was still Manny Diaz's defense. I think we all know that was Manny's blueprint and his way of calling things. The problem is, and I think you said it best right there at the end, Florida State had a plan, but they also have guys that are 4 and 5 stars littered across the field in their biggest game against their biggest rival. And I think some of those kids played above and beyond. Like I saw Daryl Jackson do things I've never seen Daryl Jackson do. Let's get in the backfield and actually get a guy on the ground. He never does that. Never did it in Miami, never really had done it at Florida State. Duke doesn't have that talent. And if they think they're going to go man too high against Miami and cover Restrepo and Jacoby and Isaiah and Sam Brown and Elijah Arroyo, they're nuts. And if they think they're going to be able to come out, all right, we saw Florida State get home with a couple of pressures, and we're going to send 6 or 7 at Cam Ward, and now you have that secondary covering those guys, they don't have a chance. They lost to Georgia Tech early in the year. I think they lost by 10, and Haynes King is not as good as Cam Ward. But in the second half of the game, Georgia Tech was able to start moving the ball with a quarterback that has abilities like Cam, can move, can throw the football as well. Manny is going to play a very high risk reward type defense. The problem is you take risk, it's going to reward Miami. And if they have a terrible run defense, which I know they do, Miami's going to body blow them early. When Manny starts to send extra pressure, now it's going to be RPO stuff. We know Cam has no problem getting it out on the screens. And I think it's dial a score for the Canes. I think 40 plus against this defense. I don't think Manny Diaz and his team have enough athleticism to get things done. On the flip side, you're dead on. Malik Murphy, 4-star quarterback, went to Texas, obviously was not going to pass Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning and decided it's time to go. I actually wanted him at Miami before we ended up getting Cam Ward. I thought Malik Murphy might be a guy a little bit better than Ja'Carri Brown throwing the football. But now that I see him, my goodness, he can't throw the ball. And if Miami's defensive backs can play sticky in this game or just be in the vicinity, he's going to give us an interception or two. Now, the scary part, he does have ability to break tackles and run around, and he's about 6'5". He's a giant kid that's got unbelievable athleticism, but he's another one that if Lance Guidry this week wants to dial up a little more pressure, tell your guys in the interior, don't give them step-up lanes, and your exterior guys, you want to rush with contain. You do that and make him stand in the pocket and throw the football. Like I said, he's going to give you the ball. I know it's a 20.5-point spread. It's about what I'm thinking the game's going to be, maybe a little more. I'm thinking more 41-17 Canes. We're going to send Manny back to Mannyville up there in Duke and tell him go get ready for Cooper Flag and basketball because their football season comes to an end.
I love it. I love it. And I mean, to your point too, right? I think one of the biggest things that our defense is going to have to hone in are linebackers. I mean, I think
Oh,
one of the things that have been very frustrating the last few weeks with this defense is just it's not necessarily the scheme in our defensive game plan. It's just the small little fundamental things that you should be doing on a weekly basis of just tackling, wrapping up, making sure when your hat's on the ball that that first guy gets the tackle. It's always like there's 2 or 3 broken tackles before that next guy
right.
goes. And I think the linebackers in particular are going to have a really big week this week, or they're going to have to for Duke to not be able to score a lot of points because they're going to have a solid rushing attack against Miami. And then going on the flip side to our offense, I think the one biggest things we're going to have to do is I want to see us establish the run early. And of course, the key to this whole football game is going to be limiting turnovers. Duke
Oh,
is number 1 in the nation in turnovers. They have 10 turnovers currently at number 1 in the nation. If you look at the game against SMU just this past weekend, they caused 10 turnovers and recovered 6 of those 10. I'm sorry, they caused 9 turnovers, recovered 6 of those 9, and still lost to SMU. So, I mean, that is something that they are very familiar with causing turnovers. And this is a Miami team that has been able to limit turnovers so far this year. And a guy in Cam Ward, who that was one of his biggest knocks going into this Miami program. And yet he hasn't been doing that very often. I want to see us continue to do that. And of course, the big thing to me is this. You brought up one of the great stats so far this season for Miami as far as converting on drives with only
right.
3 so far this year. But one of the biggest things I've seen so far this year with this team is number 1 in the nation on third downs and
Yeah.
number 1 in the nation on first downs. Those 2 stats, I mean, the fact that you are number 1 in third downs alone, as we know, Cane fans, that was one of the things that would haunt us every single year besides penalties on this football team is us being in third down money downs and not being able to execute. When we're number 1 in the nation in that, and then on the flip side, being number 1 in the nation on first downs, that just goes to show you that this offense is humming on all cylinders because
Yeah.
you can't be number 1 on first downs and then have limited opportunities on third downs and still be number 1 at that. So I think we need to continue to do that because on the flip side, on the defense on both Miami and Duke, we are both, I believe, top 12 in the nation on third downs as far as limiting the opponents. So we need to make sure that our third down conversions, when we do get in those predicaments, we continue to hit that 60% margin for us to win this game clean. But all in all, I couldn't agree more with you. I like us winning at least 20 plus points and Manny going back to Duke and preparing for yet another disappointing season as a head coach.
Yeah, can I say this to Miami fans? And we met a million of them that we've either known or haven't known walking around on Saturday. The tailgate was great. Florida State environment was fantastic. But you got 2 home games left. And I implore people, if you especially if you live in the South Florida region, like I quite frankly cannot afford to turn around and come back this week. My wife would divorce me. I probably won't be able to come back for Wake Forest. But in Atlanta, I've already heard Capicane and Wesley and Taz and a bunch of those guys are coming up here and we're all going to hang out. They're coming to Atlanta to see us. You and I are definitely planning to be in Charlotte, God willing that things are going to go right. But I implore Canes fans that were at Florida State last week and were there for 5 hours tailgating, get your butts to the game this week. You know, you got 2 chances to see a potential Heisman winner before he's no longer playing in Miami. Why wouldn't you take advantage of that? And I get it. There's a million things to do. Guess what? It's noon on a Saturday. Get to the tailgate at 10:30. Have some bacon and eggs. Go over to the blue lot. I promise you, Mondo will be there. You know, you'll see our buddy AB from About the Fans. I think he's in the green lot now. X and his crew. Literally, you walk up and say, "Hey, I want to get a wristband." It's 10 to 20 bucks, whatever the game is, and he's got a giant spread of food and all you can drink. But more importantly, these kids deserve our support. Stop only showing up when it's cool to show up. Stop only showing up when Florida State comes to town or Notre Dame next year comes to town. How about show up this week for Duke? Because the last I checked, Duke is 6-2. And the last I checked, you got a chance to play in a college football playoff and an ACC championship game. Be loud and proud this week. Go by CanesWear first and foremost. I know Brett and Jeff and all those guys will appreciate you over there. But do all of that for this team this year. They deserve it for all the years we've shit on them, and we've had to because they haven't been the best football team going. They deserve all the support that they get right now.
Yes, make sure you get all your merch at CanesWear.com or 2655 South University Drive, Davie, Florida. Whether it's Monday, Thursday, Friday, or game days and Saturdays, they are open all the time. So make sure you get your stuff. And yeah, man, I think you made a great point. We got to continue to pack the rock. And it not only means a lot to the current players and the staff on the team currently, but as y'all know, with me following and talking recruiting all the time, it means a lot to these recruits. I got the opportunity to sit down and talk to Darion Coleman and his father the other day, 2026 quarterback out of Orlando Jones, who you got to hang out with the Florida game at the beginning of the season. And this was the first time that both of those gentlemen were able to experience Hard Rock Stadium. They never been to a Miami home game before, and he was blown away by the atmosphere in that stadium. He heard all the things on social media in the years past, and all the rivals and fans, always joking about how the stadium is never filled. And we did more than just fill the stadium. We impressed one of the top quarterbacks in the nation, and he is coming away with that visit, not only expecting to come back for more, but he is getting a lot of great talent around him to hopefully join this team. And we had a great, 100+ recruiting visitor list last week against Florida State. Well, guess what? Recruiting never stops. And with the season that we're having, we have yet again another big time recruiting list this weekend for the Duke game. So yes, please make sure you support this team, fill up stadiums, because it not only helps our current players, current team and staff, but it also helps the future of Miami and really being involved and believing that when they see us fans believe, they believe a little bit more as well. So make sure you're not just doing all the hollering on social media, but you get your butts in the stadium. So kudos, a good point for John on that. Before I let you out of here, John, and you plug some of your information where everyone can find you, you mentioned before, obviously you working at 680 The Fan over there in Atlanta. And I know every single day, every single morning, every single week, whether it's win or lose, 2017, 2019, or 2024, you have never been shy about showing love about your Miami. And every week you give those guys hell anytime. But I know this year it's very different, right? Same thing with me up here in Gainesville. When we talk about Miami, when we talk about Cam Ward, there's a lot more crickets now. There's a lot more quiet agreeing in the background, or just when they speak back to you, it's almost like it's ... Well, what is it like in 2024 talking to your coworkers or just people in the Georgia Bulldog territory about this Miami Hurricane team, about Cam Ward? And in all honesty, there's not really much they could say now.
No. What's funny is literally 2 years ago, my program director comes in and goes, I really don't want to hear about Miami at all. He goes, I get it. You're a fan. You're super fan. You're down at the games. He goes, outside of going to the game, he goes, we should never mention them. He goes, that is an irrelevant program that nobody cares about. And I said, you're wrong. And this was in 2022. I said, you're dead wrong. I said, people care. People are pissed. They may not be going to games, but they're mad. And I said, and people care. And then last year, you guys are going to choke away 6 more games. And the only time we really got to talk about the Canes was unfortunately the Georgia Tech game, because the station I work at is Georgia Tech's flagship. So I couldn't say much. I go in upset. And this year we would always talk about, we make predictions. And when I predicted Miami to be in the playoffs, of course, everybody like, Miami, whatever. I said, okay, we're going to be really good this year. And this isn't just the fan talking. Well, as the season's gone along, each week it's gotten quieter and quieter. And like today, we played Manny Diaz's cut talking about coming back to play Miami. And they were like, man, it's a huge game for Manny. And my co-hosts go, we forgot he got fired so Mario Cristobal could get the job. I said, yeah, I'll go further. The only reason he got fired is because Mario was going to take the job. If Mario said no, Manny may have still been the coach, and who knows where we would have been at this point in time. So it's a sense of pride. My car has had a custom Miami plate on the back. The state of Georgia allowed us to make plates years ago. I have that. I got a Miami plate on the front. I've got the U everywhere. But let's just say I've pulled out a lot more gear this year than I have in years past. It used to be about 2 out of every 5 days I'd have Miami stuff on. Oh, now it's pretty much 5 out of 5. And they go, I can't believe you have that much stuff. I said, I haven't even got to the second half of the closet. I said, I've got Miami stuff for days. So it's great. There's still disbelief that they're good enough to win it all. I still get, and you probably get the same stuff on social media. Oh, you got the refs helped you 3 games. get the hell out of here. Refs didn't help a damn thing. Oh, you guys haven't played anybody. I go look around the country. Who really has played anybody? Georgia's had a great schedule. I'll give them that. Oh, if you ran up against a real team like Clemson, they're going to blow you out. I said, yeah, like they did last year when we had a true freshman quarterback. And then the flip to that is, well, Clemson's better. You don't think Miami's better? I mean, we played Emory Williams in his first ever start against Clemson, and we beat him because Cade Klumden couldn't get in the end zone. So I deal with all of that, but right now I just deal with it with a smile. We're 8-0. Nobody is going to break my pride. Nobody's going to break my stride. Nobody's going to ruin my happiness. I know even if, God forbid, we lose a game in the regular season, we are probably going to end up in the college football playoffs. And I just can't wait until late December, early January, when everybody in the world is watching. They're going to see that U run out of the tunnel.
Man, I couldn't have said it better. I tell you what, nobody gets us Cane fans more hyped about Hurricanes football and chopping it up than my guy, John Michaels. And everybody is doing this. Doesn't matter if you're a Hurricane fan or a high school fan, or if you're playing basketball or croquet, tennis. I don't care what sport, how old you are. Everybody's doing the Cam Sally, and it's not because Western Kentucky started it.
No.
It's not because Cam Ward was doing it at Washington State. It's because it's the U baby, and we hold weight more than anybody else. And hey, man, we hold a lot of weight. We're going from paperclip weight to heavyweight very quickly this season. So I like it. I love it. John, before we get you out of here, please make sure you let the Cane fans know where they can find your work, man.
Main thing, Twitter, hit me up at John Michaels U. You know what that U stands for. At State of Miami Pod, I'm on there as well. The podcast is up normally weekly if I'm not doing 800 other thousand things. Cane Gang Radio Show, Thursday nights, we're there. 8:30, 9 o'clock on the YouTube channel, on social media. That's Brad, myself, DC, and Bird. We're up there. And then 680 The Fan in Atlanta. If you download the 680 The Fan app, you can listen to us every Monday through Friday from 6 to 10 a.m. And you can hear me now on ESPN Radio. You just have to check your local, because I don't know when I'm working. It's whenever they decide to set me up and do that. But ESPN Radio, as a matter of fact, this Sunday, 10 p.m. until I think it's like 10 to 2 a.m. So I'll get off at 2 and then be back on the radio at 6. But you'll hear me on ESPN Radio there. And trust me, when the Canes are 9-0, we'll be talking some Canes football on ESPN Radio, because I can't have too much of these Danny Cannells and all these other national guys that want to crap on us everywhere. I'm going to have to hold us up high. And last thing before we go, Brad, if you're an FSU fan and you're celebrating that you held Cam Ward to 200 yards and your sorry-ass team is at 1-7, shame on you. If you're an FSU podcaster, and I don't even know who this jackwagon was, him and some girl, and he's screaming about, we got it, Restrepo in handcuffs. Dude, X was out there chilling on Saturday night. You know why? Because we whooped that ass. Go back to your rightly place in Leon County, wherever the hell you're from up in that area, and shut the hell up, because the Canes run the state again. You guys got your 1 year. It's over.
Hey, you can hold Cam Ward to no passing touchdowns, but guess what? He's got more receiving touchdowns than your boy Hakeem Williams, who plays wide receiver. And hey, if you're mad, if you're still mad about the Miami Hurricanes, go ahead and grab your doggy bag, get you a scoop outside, since y'all like to eat dog shit. Hey, that's John and Brad, man. CanesWear Daily Podcast. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. We're out. Go Canes.